from 6 until 8:30. Well, of course, we've always got great libation, but we're adding a violist to add some sound to the show this week. We've got several new artists that are going to be appearing. We've got Herman Steele from Belgium. He's going to be showing this week. We were supposed to have him back in December, but he was so busy up in Art Basel, he was very lucky. He sold about 9 paintings. So we're lucky to have 3 of his new works. This is David Bowie, but we'll be having at least 2 more on the wall for you to enjoy. We've got Ron Progasso, who is a printmaker and monotype man from out in Santa Fe. Ron's biography runs about 8-9 pages, so we've already sold one of his paintings. It was sitting here on the floor, and one of our visitors to the gallery stepped up and purchased it, and we'll be sending that off. We've had a great couple of weeks here with Christmas and New Year's, and we at Gildea Gallery hope to see you visit us at some point. Today we're very lucky to have Darren Jones. Darren's a art critic, an art writer, a painter himself, and what brings you to Key West? I know you're here on a regular basis.
Yeah, well, I live here. This is where I live. Partner and I are here in the winter, and then we're in Fire Island in summer. So we live between 2
great spaces,
island paradises.
Yeah. Now, you've been traveling a great deal lately. I know from you and I have been acquaintances for over 2 or 3 years now, and I've been kind of anxious to see some of your work, but also he is currently writing 3 articles, I know, that you said earlier this week. Let's hope you've got them all done.
Yeah, so I write for 4 or 5, maybe 6 art magazines, art publications. So each of them has a different approach and want me to do different kinds of articles for them, interviews, reviews, and so on. So it so happens I've got 3 or 4 right now. So I'm jumping between them.
I got you.
With deadlines. But I got 2 of them off.
That's great. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
What is the current status of the art community nationally? You and I've had several chats about what you see going on and where you see the business going. Gildea Gallery is kind of very different than, we've got 50 galleries in Key West. We try to adhere to very contemporary and figurative work, and we don't carry any copies. We carry no G-plays, and as I say to some people, we have no roosters. Although one of our painters heard me say that and painted us a rooster, and luckily somebody's in looking at that. Hopefully we'll sell it and ship it up to Alabama if we're lucky. But Darren, tell us a little bit about what you see going on with the business, with art in the United States presently.
I think what's interesting is, I live here, so I see the Key West art scene, which is very different to the art scene in New York, where I studied. I did my MFA at Hunter, and I was in New York for almost 10 years. So I know that scene, and I visit regularly enough, and as I say, in the summer I'm up there. So I keep in touch with what's going on there. And then, as you mentioned, I've traveled a lot this year. I did a residency program at UT Dallas. They have an artists and writers residency program. So I got to see what a modest-sized city, it's the big D, but it's modest-sized city, what its art scene is like, and compare that to New York, which I know, to Key West, which I've come to know. So people ask about the art scene, and I would say there are art scenes. There's completely different art worlds that even don't interact with each other very much. So the work here is often geared, as you said, to what tourists coming here want as a memento of Key West. Some of the typical sights and sounds of Key West. So roosters, palm trees, beach scenes. There's a lot of landscape. and it's more traditional. It's abstract painting or it's figurative, and that appeals to people that are here. So it's very business oriented, the art scene here. And I know artists have meaning in their work and reasons for making the kind of work they make, but for the most part, they have an eye on sales here. And that is less so for artists in what you might call contemporary scene in New York or Dallas or LA, where sales are not the driver for an artist. They want more critical recognition, maybe they're more conceptual, maybe the work they make is not as commercial, it's difficult for people to imagine it in their home, and the artists are less concerned with that. They want a gallery that's going to help them with that side of it. So there are different art scenes depending on the demographics of a place or why the place became an art community in the first place.
I kind of see that in here where we ship almost as much up to Massachusetts, Connecticut, and places like that as we sell locally. It seems like a lot of people will come in here and see a great painting and say, well, I can't particularly use that in my decor of what I've got going here in Key West. It's more traditional, you know, roosters, as you say, pictures of houses and things like that, but they'll buy it and we'll ship it up to Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, and some of our artists are very big in those communities, but we seem to sell a lot out of here to those particular areas and to people who more or less are summer or winter visitors. When I say winter visitors, some people want to call them snowbirds, but
yeah, I've heard that term.
Yeah, that's a biggie here.
So these are people that have homes here but want artwork for their homes up north, you mean?
Exactly. It's what.
So they're less tourists, they're just...
Right. We're kind of off the beaten path, and you've actually got to research us to find us here in Key West. Although, as I said, we're having a big opening again Monday night, and we'll be doing something called East Meets West, and we've got a significant number of artists from out in the Santa Fe, Albuquerque. We have a painter that we're expecting in from Dallas, who's very big in the Dallas area. He's also got the contract to do most of Tiffany's new jewelry, so that ought to be very interesting. And we've got our traditional artists that we've had for the last couple of years, which are, you know, more or less East Coast and Midwest type people.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, knowing that the art scene doesn't transfer drastically between cities and cities, what do you see as the movements that you see going on? Is figurative art selling like I think it is? Or, you know, and people are writing about it now, and they're maybe a little late to the scene, but are writing about it?
I don't know that it's any more or less than it has been. I think different kinds of collectors collect what they like, and so figurative, abstract, conceptual, more commercial, less commercial work, it all has an audience.
Yes.
Perhaps figurative and landscape and abstract and the kind of work you see in Key West sells more, because I think most people buy art that they can see in their homes. They have to live with it, so you're going to see something every day, you want to love it.
Yeah.
And that's typically for people that are visiting here, for example, that are maybe not in the art world. They're not looking for some very socially progressive art that means this and means that and is pushing society forward. They want something they can live with.
Yes.
And a lot of people, I think, buy art as a form of design. They're less interested in what the meaning behind it is. And I think it's fine and logical and reasonable and great to buy an artwork because it goes with the other colors in your living room. I mean, it's the visual, it's the aesthetic, it's what you, as I say, have to see every day. And I think those are the things that push people towards spending their money on something.
Yeah.
Or it could be, you know, maybe a figurative work looks like someone they know, or a landscape reminds them of a place they went. So emotional attachment is what I think causes people to, emotional attachment or design sensibility is what I think most people, I'm not talking about the avant-garde New York scene, but most people across the country who have art in their homes, and every person has art of some form in their home, a poster they found, something they got at a flea market. I mean, art isn't just paintings and sculpture. It can be any sort of creative impulse that has a physical result to it, an object, whatever. Everyone has taste, and everyone has their taste. No one's taste is superior to anyone else's. So across these art scenes, which are different, Key West is another art world to New York, but neither is more tasteful or less tasteful than the other. And everyone makes choices about what art they have in their home. So I don't know if figurative or abstract or whatever is selling more or less. People come to art with their own stories, and that's what I think gives them the impulse to buy, or not.
I know that a lot of people say, oh, my house is loaded. And of course, I'm always joking with everybody and saying, well, you know, that's what beds are for, you to shove the art underneath and buy something for me. But it's people want something the right size. I mean, you know, people are constantly coming in and asking me to measure art so it fits in a particular place. We've been very lucky with a sculpturist by the name of Cesar Marin, who's behind me today, and his work is going out across the country. He's recently done 6-foot statues like this behind me in Dubai and a hotel down in Texas. And as he says to me, I went to see the Blue Man Group, so I kind of got interested in doing that. But Cesar is very well known worldwide for his regular sculptures, besides these, we call them climbers. And this is one of the things that seems to attract people in off the street, as much as a great piece of art hanging on the wall that they see, which means that they want to come in and visit Gildea Contemporary Gallery. Now, when you see a gallery like mine, which is not atypical of Key West, do you think there's a market that we can blend together with both New York, Chicago, places like that?
That's a really interesting question. So, since moving here and also being involved in a book published a few years ago by two great critics and philosophers, David Carrier and Joaquin Pissarro, the book was called Wild Art. And it's all the art and all the creative things, gestures, that you'll never see in a contemporary art museum because it's not deemed valuable, sexy, important, relevant, or socially incisive by the cultural 1%, the big gallery and museum directors. So a lot of art, 99% of art is dismissed as kitsch or uninteresting or cliched. And it's this sort of cultural 1% and they get to choose what you see in MoMA, Guggenheim, the Whitney, and it's incredibly prejudiced against more traditional art, against art that's beautiful or sentimental, or just representative of a street scene or whatever. Oh, that's been done, why did you bother doing it? Even if you can draw well, why bother? We know all that. What are you saying about the world? Well, nobody, artists don't always have to be saying something. You can paint a picture because it's beautiful, and that's more the scene here in Key West. Now, these two worlds don't collide, and they're kind of antagonistic sometimes towards each other. In New York, if I were to bring some friends here from the art world, it might be dismissed as everything I've just said. And the artists that make this kind of work might dismiss the work in New York as unintelligible, or what does that mean, or so they don't come together. And it would be a really interesting experiment to bring a what might be considered progressive conceptual artist with a research-based practice who's interested in this, that, and the other into this gallery and show their work with this kind of art. It would be a clash, and it might be ugly, but it would be interesting.
I hear you. Well, I'll have to gain some courage before I do that. You know, I mean, I'm used to taking a few risks in life, but
you might be the first to do it, because what you see in Santa Fe or Key West or New Orleans is interesting.
Yeah.
Because it has a similar scene going on to Key West. It's lots of little galleries selling New Orleans versions of roosters and palm trees, things that go like tram streetcars and so on. So there's a market there for tourists. So New Orleans has its version of Key West type art, but it also has a more contemporary scene of artists. So, I don't know that anyone brings them together or tries to, because there might not be a commercial advantage to doing so, or an artist like a New York, Chicago, LA artist might not want to be associated with this kind of stuff. It might damage their reputation. Why are you showing with that stuff?
Yeah.
So it might take some courage on all sides to push them together.
Well, I have taken the risk, and I do have a woman by the name of Carmen Lee Gamble, who is an artist of over 30 years and has a studio and a gallery up in Solomon Island in the Chesapeake. But she has a gallery also over in New Orleans, so we are experimenting with her work this year.
Great.
So I am trying to push the elements.
Maybe I can think of a few artist friends in New York and introduce this idea to them.
I think that would be great, and I think we'd love to have that idea pushed to a point of maybe having a select show.
Yeah.
And,
Match Key West artists with New York artists. Make them as uncomfortable with each other as
possible.
Yeah. Well, get some dialogue going.
Yeah. Well, question, besides visiting here and visiting with your partner, have you had a chance to go around to most of the galleries in Key West?
Yeah, again, I'm here half the year or more, so I'm in and out of galleries all the time. And, when I first started looking, I had my New York art prejudice armor on, and I thought, people buy that, but they do. So I've had to come out from behind that and lose some of the maybe snobbery that comes with an art education that took me from Edinburgh in Scotland, where I'm from, through Central St. Martin's in London.
Yeah, I hear that's a great school.
Great school for undergraduate. Through Hunter College, MFA. I mean, these programs give you the language to talk about sort of avant-garde art, but they kind of box you in as well to thinking, and they end up ironically being kind of parochial if you can't see beyond them. And you get to a point where you feel, okay, well, that's important, that's not, this is what we're talking about, that's not. And I think it calcifies conversation and it restricts it so that New York gets into a bubble and people in Dallas feel New York doesn't take them seriously. It's Texas, it's the South, it's less sophisticated. I hear that a lot in Dallas.
Yeah. So
there are all these walls built up, and part of it is when artists go through intense art education in art schools, it can block them off from seeing the value in, for example, the kind of art you see in Key West.
I know Art Speak is one of your bugaboos, and
yeah.
He has talked to me about how people write about art.
Oh,
and
press releases and even art criticism. There's really no art criticism. And now the word I keep hearing is that people are art writers. It's as if they don't want to be art critics. That sounds too harsh now. Everything's just so careful. No, you got to cut off the fat, and you need critics sometimes to be tough and to say, no, this is just not good enough.
Yeah.
This is garbage. And I'm not going to take on what your press release and your PR machine from your gallery tells me. I'm going to reject it, and I'm going to say, I don't even think it's art. Because I don't think everyone can be an artist.
Oh, I can tell you as a gallery owner that there's no way that I'm going to sit down behind an easel. I mean, there's a great book by Susan Hodges that says, no, your 5-year-old can't do that. And goes into, people like de Kooning and the rest, and tells you and shows you why, your 5-year-old son or daughter can't do that painting. So,
right. Well, maybe they can.
We haven't seen any of it. As I always say to kids who walk through, why did Picasso paint 10 to 12 paintings a day? And they say, well, we don't know. And I said, well, he was practicing. He didn't think he was good yet.
I like it when artists say they are practicing artists. I think, when are you going to become actual artists?
That's a good one.
When's that going to evolve? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's also too much focus on these massive iconic names like Picasso, whose work I detest. I can't stand looking at it. I don't think he's important. I'm not interested. Andy Warhol, all of these big, I don't care about them. I don't want to talk about them. I don't want to see them. Richard Serra is the most overrated artist. These giant metal, I don't know. Donald Trump should use them for his wall. I mean, they've lost all criticality. They're just about tonnage and cost and scale and statistics. There's no art in them. It's a conglomerate. It's a machinery. It's not art. But that's all you hear, because the art world perpetuates all these names and hangs art history on these few names from each era.
Yeah, like
Well, what else is
Chagall,
happening?
Matisse.
Whoever, all the famous names anyone on the street might say. You'd think there were only ever 10, 20, 50 artists that were important. No, they were just the ones who happened to have a leg up, a break, a review, somebody noticed them. There could have been 10 other artists that did what Jackson Pollock did, but he got noticed. So everything gets hung on him, and I reject that.
I hear you. Well, we've had a great conversation with our dear friend Darren Jones. We thank him for coming in today. As I said earlier, we're having our second show of the season here at Gildea Contemporary Gallery. It'll be from 6 until 8:30. We've got some great new people coming into the show. We've got some good art coming in from a gentleman by the name of Steve McElroy. We've got some new art from Nancy Tinkersley, who's been one of our regulars. Ron Picasso is a new artist that is new to the gallery. And Herman Stahl is obviously brand new to the gallery. So do come in. Do send us your email so we can give you a notification via email that we're having another show. We'll probably do another 6 or 4 or 5 shows. About every 4 weeks we'll be doing a new show in here. So come in this week and see Art Meets West and enjoy the time and enjoy a good drink with us. Thank you. How much time did